dealing with real life or death circumstances all day long, dealing with businesses that making major decisions and major moves, and being in a circle where you get to make those decisions, dealing with the little frivolous things, which my ego is going to say frivolous things because it's not to somebody else's perspective.
That's the point.
You know?
That's where the empathy comes into play, is that
I'm sorry the trash didn't get taken out today and we missed the trash man. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to get all wrapped up about that because I just dealt with a mother who lost their baby girl.
Man.
Welcome to the show. I hope this goes off well on the Marty Norman live page, but if not, who cares, right?
We're here.
How we doing, Brian? What we doing, man?
Amazing.
How was your
always
weekend?
Doing amazing. My weekend was busy.
Was it?
Cutting down a lot of trees.
So you're a lumberjack now?
Apparently. I'm officially in the Midwest now.
I got the beard.
I got the spider bites galore, and like, dang, these things are vicious.
Bro.
They don't mess around.
Bro, it's Indiana.
Oh my gosh.
It's Indiana.
The problem is I didn't feel them
That's
till
probably
that night, and then I was like, "What?"
That's called
Itching like
bed
crazy.
bugs.
No,
Yeah, welcome to Indiana.
no, I wasn't asleep when it happened. Before I went to bed, my arms looked like pipe, which was kind of nice, but yeah, they like tore me to pieces. It was bad, but yeah, we're just prepping the property,
Nice.
making room.
I can't wait to see it.
It's gonna be
You're
fun.
making me a cabin, right?
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, for me.
I'm gonna make like a little tiny community.
A little bungalow off
Yeah.
to the side. Anyway, I had a great weekend.
Yeah, how was it?
We did the old float for recovery down at White Rock Park in St. Paul, Indiana.
Sold out.
It was a sold out show, babe.
Dang.
And it was great. It was there was roughly 800. I don't.
I was
even
gonna
know.
say, what does sold out mean?
Yeah, like 800 people, and you know what's crazy is I had a lot of people. You know, us addicts and alcoholics, we want to wait till the last minute, right? We have this inept ability to procrastinate till the very last second of anything in our lives, and I probably got 100 messages. People, is it sold out? I'm like, yeah. I've been advertising this for 2 months, and about 5 weeks ago, I said there's 250 tickets left, you know.
Dang.
So yeah, it's sold out. But no, man, it was you know, I do a lot of a great committee, by the way. We have it was a benefit to raise money for the Healing Place in Louisville, Kentucky.
Okay.
It's a great free facility down there. It's a 90 to 12-month program. It's amazing. I don't really know, you know, I've been inside it and did a little tour, but like all I know, and this is the proof in the pudding, is the people that go through that program and complete it are amazing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They are well versed in the programs. They seem to do very well in life, and it's just they got this driven mentality about them. Like, I mean, because it's a free facility, right? So they don't have a medicated detox.
Okay.
They have a detox where you're gonna sit in that corner and sweat that out. You know what I mean?
My style.
Right? That's the type of detoxes
how I did
I've
it.
done.
Yep.
You know, usually on a jail cell floor, but you know, but whatever. But yeah, no, it was a great turnout for a great cause, great people. Everybody had a blast. They had a dance off, which turned into a twerking event.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go figure, right?
I'm sure that's on TikTok somewhere.
I guarantee it. So if you guys were out there twerking at this thing, just know you're all over TikTok. Anyway, what are we talking about today,
We were talking
brother?
earlier today because someone missed a meeting last night. No names, Marty. And
Yeah, I got
and it led me right into
here I am.
it led me right into the topic of basically what I have seen in business relationships, in friendships, in family relationships, as I've been like dealing with people and talking with people and just seeing things in general, is communication sucks. And it's not intentional. That's the problem. Is like people want to communicate, but they don't know how necessarily, right? Because people speak different languages and things get misconstrued. There's no like ground rules on the table. Like with me and my wife, we have ground rules. So if I work too hard,
Of course you do.
and I turn into
Of course you do, brother.
this is called a healthy relationship.
Of course
Sorry.
you have one of those
Like,
too.
this
Of
is how it
course.
works. This is what
bleh,
makes
bleh.
things healthy. Is there are ground rules? It's like if I do this, this, and this, and I know it's going to upset you, but I can't help doing it because I get lost in the sauce. You're allowed to do X, Y, and Z, and I cannot do anything about it. If I do, these are the consequences.
So she's allowed to
Call me out.
physically
Abuse me. Take a baseball bat to me. No, it's like, because I've gone too far, I can't get mad about that. So I've said that to her.
Yeah.
I cannot get mad about that. Now, she doesn't because she's nicer about it, but she has every authority by my word to call me out in whatever form, fashion it looks like, with some half decent respect, right? It's like, don't just be stupid about it unless I'm still pushing. But I get lost in the sauce and then the ground rules come out. But that's what I mean by communication, right? Like, we took the time to sit down and say, what was that fight about? Like, what were we really fighting about? And what does it look like moving forward? You learn from things, right? Because I'll say something and it means something totally different to her or to someone else at work or a friend that I'm talking to, and they're upset and bothered and irritated, and you're like, what just happened?
Well, I think that's what I want to get across right now is like this communication. Communication is a skill. Some of us have it, and some of us need to acquire it, and some of us never will.
1,000%.
Right? But it's not, we're not just going to talk about communication with relationships or your significant other, because while that's the home, the forefront,
right?
That's your happy place, that's your home, and while that's equally important as anything else in this world, we don't talk about communication in other ways too, especially with your careers, with your friendships, with your higher ups, with your subordinates, with your employees. I mean, communication. Well, I want to say this too. There's what goes hand in hand with communication is connecting. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of people drop the ball. You know, some people can communicate. Well, let's not even take that. Some people can speak and tell you things.
Yep.
But that's not communication. It's nowhere near what communication is. And some people think that they have a great communication skills because they can tell you what they want and what they don't like and what they don't like about you.
And that's where the other thing I mentioned was assumptions. Assumptions are the death of communication.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that you understand me.
Yeah.
And when you don't understand me, I'm going to get irritated about it because I've assumed that you speak English, so you've got to know what I'm saying, right?
It seems
like it seems like a safe assumption,
right?
But it's not. In actuality, it's dangerous, and it is the death of so many friendships, marriages, careers, just general situations. It causes fights in public with strangers. Like, understand
Walmart. Yeah, I remember that.
Understand where you're at and what's going on.
I took that to the box, though. So
I have empathy for people that don't understand what I'm saying sometimes, and I used to think, man, you're an idiot, right? Because that's my ego getting in the way. And then I came to a level of, wow, like, we need to adjust the way we're communicating and have some sort of empathy towards those that don't get it.
I think that's the number one thing for me is, and I don't do well in this realm when it comes to empathy. And I think that's where I fail a lot. I know that's where I fail a lot.
Yeah.
I don't put myself in your shoes. I don't put myself in your... I take that back. I do when I'm working with addicts and alcoholics and trying to get them help. Like I can feel that. I feel their sickness. I feel their confusion. I feel their not understanding why they do the things that they do and why they continue to hurt themselves and people that they love. I get that, right? So I can be empathetic in that. But there's a lot of people in my life where I don't have that. And I don't wonder because I know, working in treatment and being a business owner and several businesses and doing what I do, right? Like I deal with death. I deal with sick and grieving loved ones and moms and sisters and boyfriends and husbands crying and people overdosing and dying and friendships that, this is happening and that's how I deal with what in my ego head tells me is real life. And dealing with real life or death circumstances all day long, dealing with businesses that making major decisions and major moves and being in a circle where you get to make those decisions, dealing with the little frivolous things, which my ego is going to say frivolous things because it's not to somebody else's perspective.
That's the point.
That's
where the empathy comes into play, is that
I'm sorry.
you?
I'm sorry the trash didn't get taken out today and we missed the trash man. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to get all wrapped up about that because I just dealt with a mother who lost their baby girl. You know, and
yeah.
And that's where I lack empathy.
It's now for those, whether whether you live with a group of friends or you're in a relationship or you're still with your parents and somebody's getting upset about the trash. That's when I sit down and have a conversation like, what are we really mad about right now? Because it's not the trash.
Right. That's true, too. And there it is.
9 times out of 10.
It's not. It's the 47 little things like the trash, though.
Or it could have just been a bad day that the trash just happened to be that one thing where you're like, man, I've had to deal with enough today, and I come home and somebody just can't take out the trash.
Yeah. You
and they
son of a...
skip, and they assume that you automatically had time. And again, we get into assumptions where...
Or that you even cared. Like,
absolutely.
That you even cared if the trash got taken out today.
Which led me down the road of ground rules.
Right.
Same thing.
Which, by the way, the trash is a metaphor, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Most of the time.
Well, hey. All right. I guess I'll take one of them. Welcome to the show. Thank you.
Coffee service.
Careful what you say, we're live.
Right. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Chris Corn Off the Cob. I appreciate you.
So it leads me down the road of, again, ground rules of sitting down and saying, after the drama has happened in any situation, if you're at work and somebody's irritating you, you let things cool down and then you take the time to sit down and say, I don't know what's going on, but let's get to the bottom of it in a safe space where you can speak your mind right now and I'm not going to get upset. Just know that in return, I'm going to do the same thing and we're just going to...
Let me ask you, though.
Honest.
How often do you have those relationships outside of your
1,000%.
significant other?
Yep.
So you have those rules in place, basically.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's important too.
And they still come down. So I was brought into this company. I know the owner and his wife, and they reached out to me, and that's the situation I'm in right now. And there have been multiple conversations where I just sit down and me and the owner have uncomfortable conversations that consist of like, what's going on? Like, we need to fix some things, and are you having a bad day, or like, what's going on with this person? And it's not just him, it's multiple people where we sit down and lay the ground rules of like, this is where we're at and this is where we need to go. And we need to be on this road together, not pushing at each other because it doesn't make any sense. I'm here to help and I know you are too. So let's stop keeping score and let's start working towards the end goal. Because ultimately all that matters at the end result is the customer, right? Client, customer, language. So all that really matters is you got to get yourself out of the way. Stop being so everything's about me. We need to look forward and take care of other things.
No, and
there's a bigger picture.
What I see, especially in the workplace or careers or jobs or any of that, what I see a lot of that could be resolved through a conversation like this, through communicating, through connecting, is ego gets in the way.
Right? We've all got something to prove.
And when ego gets in the way, it's generally because somebody doesn't know what their side of the street is, right? Mm-hmm. There's not clear-cut definitions of what my job is and what your job is, and you know, and those merge sometimes, and those lines get blurry,
especially right now, and that's kind of why I wanted to bring this
lack
up.
Lack of work. People,
a lot of people are dealing with this right now because we have a very skeleton workforce. I don't know how. But it's happened. Like, we got more
confused. People in this world than we ever have in the entire history of mankind, and yet we have a lack of workers.
Yeah, so it's happening right now, and people are just taking on the stress, and they're afraid to have those conversations because, again, they assume that it's going to just go bad. I've had this conversation before, and it's going to go bad. Someone recently said that to me. Well, I've had these conversations so many times, and they always go bad. I said, have you ever had the conversation with me? No. Then you don't know how it's going to go.
Well, not only that is like you can have like this. So on a team,
mm-hmm.
like you can have conversations and everything can be, and everybody can have clear cut, descriptions of what they're supposed to do, what their role is, and then it's always going to be something you're going to have to revisit, like because those lines eventually over time get merged and messy and gray again, So I think having conversations and feeling like things are going well and it went well is just something you're going to have to revisit again, because egos, especially in my world, in the addiction world, in the treatment world, and people who are in long-term recovery. I don't know if you know this, Brian, but ego is our is our problem, right? Yes. So we always going to revert back to character defects, if you will. So knowing that ahead of time, being prepared for that, and knowing that you're going to have to revisit things without getting a resentment or without, well, that didn't work out. Look, it just went right back to the way it was. No, it's just time to revisit it again.
Yeah.
It's time to get everybody back on the same page, back on the same course.
Breaking bad habits are harder than creating new ones. 1,000%.
Sure.
So this is where the funny thing in the workforce is when the lines get crossed, it's a mixture of ego and I'm actually just trying to help you, but there's a lack of communication in that help. Yeah. So I'm coming over here to help you, but I'm not telling you what I'm doing.
I'm not. And
now you're spinning in circles trying to figure out where that pin went or where that report went or who took the phone call.
They call that telegraphing.
Yeah.
Right. So telegraphing what you're doing, what you plan to be doing, is an important role in communication.
1,000%.
That way, somebody knows, and that goes into relationships. That goes in everything, because of assumptions, as you said at the beginning, are what are the destroyer of all communication and relationships, I guess.
And the problem is it's the assumptions 9 times out of 10 are actually wrong.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Especially from people like you and I.
It really is. It's
because we got our own perspective and
1,000%.
we see things the way we see things. And again, here's the empathy where if we had empathy in this situation or with this person or with what the person's going through, if we had empathy, we would understand their perspective a little more, and which would in turn be able to help us connect better, yep, which would help us communicate better. But
the funny, people have asked me multiple times over the years, and we'll do a whole separate podcast about this one day, but face tattoos. I've had multiple people ask me, why did you do that?
That's so dumb.
First and foremost, because someone told me not to. They said it would ruin my life. So
truthfully, you did it because you never wanted to have a job again the rest of your life. You should have got it said. Should have said unemployable on your face.
My big thing with the tattoos is that people assume that I'm this prison convict and I'm all these bad things, and then we have a conversation. And 10 minutes into most conversations, people will say, "Man, I thought something totally different of you."
Tell me though. Do you enjoy that a little bit?
1,000%.
I do too.
That's why I did it.
I do too.
I want people to understand the whole don't judge a book by its cover thing. And like, you can't just assume that you know somebody based on things that you see them doing or things that are going on, because I have a relationship with myself, and that is the most important relationship that I will ever have in my entire life. And if the relationship with myself is not intact, then every other relationship is doomed. And so I'm always focused on the relationship with myself and keeping that intact, and that's what keeps me happy. And as a result of that, it progresses towards people. And so when they come at me, I don't take offense to.
Wait a minute. You don't get offended?
No.
Oh my God.
I don't know.
Are you the only person in America that don't get offended anymore?
I think it's funny.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, I love it. And I mean, me and my wife were walking through
That's the worst word
Kroger
ever.
one day.
That's the worst word ever created. I'm offended.
Me and my wife were walking through Kroger one day, and this old man walked up and goes, "You know he's got tattoos all over him, right? Why would you be with a guy like that?" And I looked at him like, "Are you outside of your..." He's like 90.
I love old dudes.
I was like,
that.
"Are you outside of your mind right now?"
He's speaking wrong with you. He's speaking the words out of his mouth that went through his brain.
Oh yeah,
I love it.
There is no processing at that age. You're like, I'm just gonna say everything because I got no time left.
I got no time left to think about it.
It was amazing, but it was like, for a minute I was a little riled up because we had just met and we were cruising, and then I was like, you know what? Like, hats off to that dude.
For sure.
Like, I get it.
Yeah, he's probably looking at your
But I was thinking
wife.
to myself, if you said that to the wrong person, old man gets beat up in Kroger's on the Channel 6 News or something, right?
You can't even, even the most vile person won't beat up an old man because he can't get credit for it.
So with this whole like new realm that we're living in right now, communication, I think, is the backbone of survival right now.
Well, let's not forget that though. Like, let's not leave that part out, because connection, right? If you're not able to connect, and for a lot of people, like for me, it's inside me. I've always been a connector, even when I couldn't communicate.
Yeah.
Right. And even when I don't communicate, I'm a connector. It's just natural in me. But a lot of people don't know how. A lot of people can communicate very well, And when I say communication, it's not just saying what you think or saying what you feel or saying this. Communication is first rule and what you should have in your head for communicating. You communicate so you can understand. Mm-hmm. You can understand what the other person is going through, and this puts back in the empathy, which I lack in a lot of areas of my life. But when you can understand what somebody else is going through, that should be your key to communicating. It's not, your key to communicating is not to make the other person see or believe what you think, because
It'll never happen regardless.
you're just gonna, it's two heads button at that point, you know.
Yeah.
So being able to connect, and because that connect, like if you feel a connection from somebody, you know, when I'm talking to somebody and they're looking out the window, or they're you know, here's one thing, new way, they're texting on their phone, like I'm done with the conversation at that point. I know you're not hearing me. Yeah. I know even if you are hearing me, you're not really interested in what I'm saying.
One thing I want to throw out real quick. If you are in any type of serious situation, whether it be with a friend, at work, or in a relationship, don't ever deal with anything serious through a text.
Or an email.
It'll never work.
It just doesn't.
What they're going to read in a heightened emotional state is not going to be what you tried to say. 1,000 times.
Or vice versa.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. I learned that a long time ago when texting became like the real big thing, and that was all people want to do to communicate.
You remember when we used to text? You have to hit the 3 button 3 times.
I was super fast at it.
2 button 2 times, and
I can still do it.
Oh my goodness,
today.
That was horrible.
Guaranteed. But the whole point of communicating with people in today's world is just being real. Like, you got to be real right now, because there's so much fake crap happening. Genuinely authentic.
Yeah.
And genuinely speak your mind. Just be constructive about it. There's so many people that are like, I'm just trying to speak my mind, but you're really trying to tear someone down. That's not speaking your mind. That's, again, ego getting in the way. And now you're trying to prove yourself. You're not trying to communicate. And there's a big difference between the two.
Agreed.
And we have to stay healthy in the form. Take a minute. Calm yourself down. Think about what you want to say.
Take an hour. Take a day.
Think about what you're trying to say. I write notes. Like, if I'm going to go into a meeting with the owner or with someone else, I will, like, it's all here in the head. And if I don't actually write it down, when I get there, I forgot all of it.
Yeah.
Or more new stuff will come up, right? So I write down my key points. Keep it short, keep it sweet, keep it simple, get to the point, get out of it.
Get to the point. I love that.
Like, you don't need to drag this out for 9 days.
Be assertive. Say what you want.
Yeah.
Say what you need to hear. You know, what you need to get back from it, and leave that.
And speak it genuinely. That's where compassion comes from, right? That's when you can feel that, just like when we talked about last week. And if you didn't see that, go back and watch it. When someone speaks genuinely, compassion just comes from the mouth. You just know it's coming from, like, deep in their soul. And you're like, I get you.
Yeah.
I can see you.
And that's the ability to connect too.
Yeah.
When you know that it comes from genuine and authentic. Mm-hmm. If you're speaking from your authentic self, and you can, like, that's how you connect.
You don't even have to be good at communication at that point.
No, that's that connection.
That's
like,
just you.
Like, I have never, like, when I go and listen to speaker meetings, or any kind of speakers at all at, like, conventions or whatever, I might remember one little sentence that they said,
right?
But I never remember what they said, right? I remember how they made me feel
every time,
and that's connection.
That's how we're wired.
Yes,
it's just the way it is. I mean, you can't. It's not humanly possible with the way. We could go deep in how the brain's wired. You couldn't remember that if you wanted to, right? It's just not possible.
If I had one wish on the world, that would be it. That I remembered everything I heard or read.
You don't want that, trust me, because unfortunately, I do have one of those brains where I can remember too much, and it drives me insane. Because someone will say something, and I'll remember it.
No, you remember the bad, though.
No, I'll remember all of it. And the problem is when it comes out later, and now I'm doing something, and then they say something that completely rebuts that. I'm like, wait a minute,
contradiction.
And that's where it's like genuine. Like, my dad taught me, be a man of your word. If you don't have your word, you are worthless.
Yeah.
So if you're going to say something, mean it, back it up. If you're going to open your mouth, be prepared to eat something, kind of a thing.
One of these?
Yeah, I mean, one or the other, food or otherwise, like, be prepared. So understand what you're doing, but again, just stop assuming that you know the outcome, because you don't. I guarantee it. Things change, people change, situations change every day, all the time, constantly. You can't assume that you know, because you don't. If you want to create something that's different, because now you're leaning towards a goal, you're not assuming that you already know it's going to be there. You're creating it, and there's a big difference between the two.
Yeah, agreed. Empathy again.
We'll get you there.
Yeah,
We'll get you
well,
there.
and that's I'll reiterate that is I have empathy for so many areas in my life and so many people because that's what I do. I talk and I listen, right? And that's big key element in my job. Maybe 90% of my job. I talk and I listen. I talk and I listen.
Right.
And I try to walk people off ledges, and I have an amazing amount of empathy and I'm able to walk in those shoes of in that situation. But there's areas in my life where I'm just like I don't.
You just don't get it because you don't want to, or you just
Well,
don't get it 'cause
I
you just
feel
don't get it?
I feel like that. So I don't want to talk about like this. It's the people in the medical field, people that work in emergencies, people that work in cancer wards, people that work in treatment who deal with death all the time. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to see the little things as something major. Right, it's really hard coming home, and I talked about the trash, but the trash didn't get taken out. Well, that just could ruin somebody's day. For me, I'm just like, I don't care, and that's because I deal with all this craziness and life or death stuff, and then you come home and there's some. I don't care that the cat pooped on the floor. Did we clean it up? Okay, cool. Right. You know what I mean? It's just it's little things, and I have trouble having empathy in those situations and I wonder if I'm alone in this field and in people that deal with death and cancer, to deal with these kinds of life or death situations. I don't feel like I'm alone. I feel like we get jaded to like, if it's not something life or death, then we probably don't even raise an eyebrow to it, and that's not good. And I feel like that's why a lot of people's, burnout's a real thing in this field, and burnout's a real thing in the medical field for people and doctors and surgeons and all these things. And I think that divorce is probably a big thing in these fields as well because of stuff like that. So
it's, in my opinion, it's still having the, I'm going to say empathy, but even having just the simple perspective of the reality that just because they don't deal with the same thing you deal with doesn't mean that the situation at hand isn't big to them.
No, and that's
I've had people say that, like,
that's 100%.
Somebody would say something along the lines of, well, it's not that big of a deal. And I would say it's not that big of a deal to you.
To you. Right. And I get that. It's different to have understanding and knowledge of that.
Yeah.
And it's completely a bigger difference to have empathy for that.
But then again, if that happens, it's still, let's sit down after things have calmed down and say, okay, why was the trash, metaphorically speaking, whatever that is, why was that a big deal today? Tell me your side of the fence. Like, walk me through what that looks like to you so that I can understand what I'm looking at. Because regardless of your day, once you start to understand where someone else is sitting, if you care, you'll want to still take, like, I don't care either. When I come home, I mean, I'm on my feet, I'm ripping stone apart, I'm doing all kinds of crazy stuff. When I come home, I could care less what the dishes are like, but I know my wife doesn't like dishes in the sink. That's what we have a dishwasher for. So I will just take the few minutes and deal with it because I know that's what she likes, and I would rather just go through the motion and get it over with than have the conversation again. That's just personally. Like, I would rather just, why not? She would rather me put something covered in food in the dishwasher than leave it in the sink. And I know that about her. She doesn't like clutter. She likes a clean space. She's very organized. The house is like spotless constantly. She runs the little vacuum I bought her that's like one of those robot vacs every day. Like, the house is always like that. And she loves it like that. And I need to respect that.
Well, I think 1,000%
of
the time, though, when you break it down, the metaphor of the trash, which is a metaphor, and you break it down, it has nothing to do with the trash.
Right. So but even then, even if it is the trash, if that is what they, imagine somebody that was raised in a trashy house and it was traumatic, right? Cockroaches and feces and just nasty, like they were straight up a trap house style.
Sounds like my first apartment.
You know what I mean? Like, imagine being raised in that and getting yourself out of that.
Yeah, no. For sure.
And then that trash is to them life or death because they felt like they were dying when they were living in that and they had no choice because they were a child. You know what I mean? Like,
So you have the mastery of empathy, and I do not. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Marty Norman Live. And in my head, I have no empathy for you and your trash situation. But I'll work on it.
Perspective.
I will work on it.
It's
I will
just
sit down
perspective.
with you after a long day of dealing with life or death, and I will say, why is the trash so freaking important to you? Because I care.
I'm definitely
I
going to
gotta call
go
my
trash
ther-
your
I gotta-
house. I'm going to park in your
I gotta
grass
call my
tomorrow.
therapist.
And
I gotta call my therapist. No, not parking my grass.
so again, like, if anybody's watching right now, please leave a comment. If you're watching later on, we want to hear, like, I want to hear your side. I want to hear what you go through. I love seeing different perspectives on everything.
And I want you to tell Brian that I'm not the only one who lacks empathy in them comments right down there, because he seems to think I feel attacked right now. Actually,
Are you assuming?
I am.
Okay.
The power of assumption, right? So I seem to think he thinks I'm the only one who lacks empathy. So
I
please
know
let
you're
him
not.
know.
I know
Please
you're
let
not.
him know.
That's the thing, is that I know you're not, and I know how many people get so wrapped up in what's going on outside of them that they lose complete sight of what matters, and that's what's inside of you and whoever you may be having the most communication with, a parent, a loved one, or a good friend.
I think this is where we really wanted to wrap this show up with
Yeah.
the idea of the mental health beside this.
Yeah, like, you
because-
got to just understand.
because divorce and loss of friendships, the loss of careers are going to be right. And this is the end all to be all. Divorces, relationships, friendships, working partners, careers are going to be the end. Either you're going to learn to communicate and connect better and have some empathy and see other people for their perspective, or you're going to get those things. You're going to get the divorce. You're going to lose your career. You're going to lose your job. You're going to have turmoil in your workplace, which I don't know if you've ever been in an environment like that. If you have turmoil in your workplace and you got closed door conversations going on and people whispering and all that, it's just going to end badly for
It
you.
always does.
You know, so it's either time to say, okay, watching this show right now, say, okay, I'm involved in that. I'm doing that. I'm like Marty, right?
Okay.
And it's time right now, today. Maybe go on YouTube after you watch this show, watch some more videos, learn how to communicate, learn how to connect, learn how to speak, learn how to, most importantly, learn how to listen. Listen, because you can never understand until you listen.
Active listening, healthy communication that consists of just being open and honest without an ego. And I know that that's easier said than done.
Yeah.
It's taken me a long time to get here. And I've gone through a lot of bad relationships, a lot of toxic situations, a lot of bad working environments, a lot of things before it finally just clicked. Like, I don't want to live like this. You can't put a dollar amount on living like this.
And
You can pay me $1 million a year and I would be dead in 2 years if I kept living like this.
Yeah, I feel it. Mental health, guys.
Absolutely.
If like this, subscribe it, send it over to your friends. We'll see you next week. Thank
Love
you guys.
Bye.